I was chatting with a friend this morning about Noel Coward's house, Firefly, in Jamaica, as you do. And I thought this is really worth making a video about because this was one of those once in a lifetime things. 40 years ago, I went to Jamaica on a little vacation with a friend of mine. We were so stupid that we booked ourselves into Sandals Resort, not realizing that we would be the only couple there not on our honeymoon. So everywhere we went, I was hearing, "And how's your lovely wife today?" etc. We were not having a good time and decided we would go to Noel Coward's house, Firefly, on the tip of the island. I really didn't have that much interest at the time, so it was just a kind of throwaway idea, and we set off for the journey, which was about 2 hours away. When we got there, the house is located on top of a high hill overlooking all of Jamaica, and there's a parking lot in front of us, and just as we parked, we saw this ancient, broken down woman hobbling toward our car, and we looked at each other and said, "Oh, please tell me that's not going to be our guide." And she came up to the window and said, "I'm gonna be your guide." It was all we could do to hold ourselves together as we walked toward the house, and she said, "This is Mr. Coward's house. This is Mr. Coward's front door." And just as we were thinking we were going to have to make a break for it because we weren't going to be able to hold ourselves together, we got inside and she said, "I was Mr. Coward's housekeeper. I was with him until he died." And then the whole event took on this amazingly different color. She showed us his closet, and there were remnants of his clothing still hanging there. She pointed out the records still propped up against the piano leg of his grand piano, and the one on the top was Joan Sutherland Sings Noel Coward, and there they were as if he'd just walked out of the apartment. She pointed to a table on the balcony and said, "This is where he wrote Room with a View." And by that time, I thought maybe she was just riffing, because I really don't think that's where he wrote Room with a View, but it's a small point. There was a 360-degree view of the entire island, and way off in the distance, you could see the gorgeous Blue Mountains where the famous Blue Mountain coffee is grown. The view was unbelievable. At the bottom of the hill was the old ramshackle collection of rooms that had once been his home, and they were filled with 8x10s of all the famous people who had stayed there, from Marlene Dietrich to Betty Davis and hosts of others. She told us that when she found Mr. Coward dead, he had died in the bathroom and fallen against the door. So she couldn't get the door open, and she had to run to the bottom of the hill, which was a long way, to get her husband because she didn't drive. She also told me that back in the old days, Noel Coward used to drive around the island in an open roadster wearing tails and a top hat, which must have really been something for his poverty-ridden neighbors. The tour of the house was a once-in-a-lifetime experience and made me feel that I was actually touching Noel Coward somehow, even though he was long dead at that time. And just before we finished, she took me to his grave, which is on this beautiful spot overlooking everything, and there was a tree growing out of the marble slab where he was buried. She reached up and pulled a leaf off the tree, crumpled it up, and put it under my nose. I couldn't imagine why, and then she said it was allspice. The smell was unbelievable. Also unbelievable, I happened to have this little plastic bulb in my car, and I put that leaf inside this plastic bubble, and all these years later, if you open it, it still has the smell of allspice, and makes me feel that I am actually and truly connected to Sir Noel Coward.